Imagine you are at the absolute peak of global superstardom. Like you are standing on a stage in a massive stadium, tens of thousands of fans are screaming your name, the lights are blinding, the energy is just electric.
Oh, it's the absolute pinnacle of the Hallyu wave.
Exactly. But in one ear, that roaring, deafening crowd sounds like nothing more than a whisper.
Yeah.
The teasers dropped, the fandom went silent. In an instant, the entire K-pop world was turned upside down by a single YouTube video title, V is going DF. The military HID this from us.
Right. The contrast is just, it's jarring. You have this, untouchable global icon dealing with a very quiet, very hidden physical vulnerability.
Welcome to StarScope K-Report. Join us as we ride the Hallyu wave, uncovering the biggest K-pop comebacks, shocking industry controversies, and major K-drama updates.
From internet-breaking rumors to historic chart milestones, we dive deep into the world of Korean entertainment.
And today we're doing a deep dive into a genuine medical mystery. We've got a really fascinating snack of sources to unpack here.
Yeah, we do.
On one side, we have recent entertainment reports from the Manila Bulletin, the Indian Express, the Korea Times, and Soompi. They all detail this shocking health revelation from BTS member V, also known as Kim Taehyung.
Right, and we are pairing those entertainment reports with a pretty dense, peer-reviewed medical study from a journal called Trauma Monthly.
Which I know sounds like a leap.
It does. It might seem like a sudden pivot from pop culture, but the clinical data in this paper explains the exact biological mechanism behind what happened to V.
So our mission today is to unpack the medical reality behind V's sudden hearing loss, connect it to the startling science of military impulse noise, and explore why cultural pressure makes this specific type of injury so uniquely dangerous.
Yeah, we are going way beyond the headlines to find out what actually happened.
Exactly, and how the human body reacts when it is just pushed past its absolute limits.
Because to understand the scope of the injury, we really have to look at the environment where this news broke.
Right. Okay, let's set the scene. It's August 2026. BTS is finally back from their military hiatus.
The moment we've all been waiting for.
Literally. They are in the middle of their highly anticipated Arirang World Tour. It's a massive comeback for the group, just a certified all-kill on the global charts.
Oh, definitely.
They've just wrapped up back-to-back concerts at M&T Bank Stadium in Baltimore, Maryland. And V and Jungkook, who is the maknae, or youngest member of the group, are just chilling in their hotel room, eating together.
Just a classic casual post-show vibe.
Yeah. And they decide to hop on the fan community platform, Weverse, for a casual live stream with ARMY, which of course is the name of their massive global fandom.
It's a very intimate setting. They are speaking directly to their most dedicated supporters, completely unfiltered.
And out of nowhere, V just drops a bombshell. He admits that for the last 2.5 years, he has been struggling with severe hearing loss.
Wow.
He literally said, "I've never told ARMY about this before, but my hearing has gotten worse."
And the statistics he provided during that live stream are what make this a literal medical emergency. He described a profound asymmetry in the damage. He stated that his left ear is functioning at 100% capacity, but his right ear is only at 30%.
30% capacity. I mean, that sent a total shockwave through the netizens. All the online fans who analyze every tiny detail of these idols' lives were just panicking.
Absolutely.
But, he wasn't the only one hurting. During that same live stream, Jungkook revealed that he has been performing through a brutal shin injury.
Yeah, that was tough to hear.
He described it as being right at the point just before a stress fracture with severe inflammation. He even apologized to the fans, saying pain forced him to hold back on stage.
So we are looking at two very different types of trauma here. One auditory, one orthopedic.
Right.
But both are occurring in this high-pressure environment where performers are just pushing through extreme physical degradation.
But the timeline is what really caught my attention. V says this issue started about 2.5 years ago. So tracking back from August 2026, that puts the start of this profound hearing loss right around December 2023.
Which is huge.
Yeah, according to the Soompi report, that is exactly when he enlisted for his mandatory military service in South Korea.
And when we look at his specific deployment, the overlap becomes undeniable.
Oh, for sure.
The Soompi report notes that V served in the 2-Corps Special Duty Team. This is a highly specialized tactical unit.
Yeah.
And a role in a special duty team inevitably involves extensive training, with firearms.
If you love staying updated on your bias and your favorites, make sure you're subscribed to StarScope K-Report because we are about to look at a clinical study that mirrors V's enlistment timeline so perfectly, it completely recontextualizes his entire military service.
So let's look at the Trauma Monthly study. They evaluated 40 male soldiers.
Okay.
And their average age was about 20 years old, which puts them right in the demographic of mandatory enlistees.
Yeah.
The researchers evaluated these soldiers following their very first firing practice with a Kalashnikov rifle.
Right, fresh recruits, just like V would have been in late 2023.
Exactly. And the methodology of this study noted that the soldiers were firing in a recumbent position, meaning lying down. And crucially, they did not use hearing protectors during this specific training exercise.
No ear protection at all.
None. But here's the detail that stopped me in my tracks. The mean duration of exposure to the gunshot noise was only 190 seconds.
Wait, 190 seconds? That's just over 3 minutes.
Yeah, a remarkably brief window of time to incur a life-altering injury.
Okay, let's unpack this for a second. I need to understand the biology here. If I go to a loud rock concert for 3 hours, my ears might ring, but I don't go deaf.
Right.
How does 3 minutes of noise permanently destroy an ear?
Well, we have to look at how the human ear processes different types of sound waves. The ear is honestly a mechanical marvel.
Yeah.
When sound enters, it vibrates the eardrum, which moves tiny bones that send waves through fluid in your inner ear, which is the cochlea.
Okay, the cochlea, right.
Inside the cochlea are these microscopic hair cells called stereocilia. These hair cells ride the fluid waves and convert that physical movement into electrical signals for your brain.
So these tiny hair cells are basically doing all the heavy lifting.
They are. Now, your ear actually has a built-in defense mechanism against loud noises called the acoustic reflex.
Oh, I've heard of this.
Yeah, when you are exposed to loud, continuous noise, like a rock concert or heavy machinery, a tiny muscle in your middle ear called the stapedius muscle contracts. It tightens up the whole system, dampening the vibration and protecting those delicate hair cells from being overworked.
Oh, so it's like bracing for a physical impact. If you see someone about to throw a punch at your stomach, you instinctively flex your abs to protect your organs. The acoustic reflex is basically the ear flexing to protect the hair cells.
That is the perfect analogy. But the acoustic reflex takes a fraction of a second to engage. It relies on continuous sound to trigger and hold that defensive posture.
And gunfire is not continuous noise.
Exactly. The Trauma Monthly study classifies gunshot blasts as impulse noise, or EN. Impulse noise is a transient explosive shockwave.
So it's an acoustic sucker punch. It hits the ear before the muscle even knows it needs to flex.
Precisely. The shockwave travels so fast and with such violent force that it completely bypasses the acoustic reflex. The stapedius muscle just doesn't have time to contract.
Wow.
So the blast hits the fluid in the cochlea like a tsunami, and it violently shears off or crushes those stereocilia.
That is terrifying. And the researchers actually measured the sound pressure levels during the continuous shot round, right? And the peak impulse sound level reached between 106 and 117 decibels SPL, or sound pressure level.
Yes, they did.
To put that in context for you listening, 117 decibels is roughly equivalent to standing right next to a loud thunderclap or an ambulance siren.
But the critical data point the study highlights here is that 117 decibels is actually lower than many established military and occupational safety standards.
Wait, really?
Yeah. NATO has a value limit of 160 decibels for military noises. OSHA, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, considers an unweighted peak sound level of 140 decibels to be the limit for unprotected exposure.
Wait, the gunfire in this study was peaking at 117 decibels, which is significantly below the 140 decibel OSHA safety limit. So technically, according to the rule book, these soldiers were in the safe zone.
The rulebook failed them.
That is insane.
The clinical results 15 minutes after the practice showed that 50% of the subjects had abnormal pure tone audiometry results. And to determine if this was just a temporary threshold shift, meaning, the hair cells were merely stunned and would eventually recover, the researchers followed up 1 week later.
And what they found was a permanent threshold shift, PTS.
Irreversible hearing loss. 1 week after this brief 3-minute exposure that was technically within safety limits, 37.5% of the soldiers still had abnormal results. The stereocilia had been physically destroyed.
Over a third of the recruits walked away with permanent damage from a single training session. I mean, that forces a massive reevaluation of how we view military training protocols.
It really does.
And later in the episode, we'll talk about the specific testing flaw that keeps this damage hidden. But first, we really need to address the most specific, undeniable parallel between the soldiers in the study and V's diagnosis.
Right, the asymmetry of the hearing loss.
Yes. V told the army that his left ear is at 100%, but his right ear is at 30%.
Yeah.
And if you were standing on a stage or just living life, sound generally hits both ears somewhat equally. Why would only the right ear drop to 30%?
Well, the Trauma Monthly study answers this perfectly.
How so?
All 40 of the soldiers in the study were right-handed.
Oh.
They held the Kalashnikov rifle tucked into their right shoulder, bracing it with their dominant arm. The researchers noted that the greatest hearing changes occurred in the right ear because of its physical proximity to the blast.
It's just simple geometry. If you are a right-handed shooter, you tilt your head down to look down the sights. Your right ear is thrust forward, practically hovering over the chamber of the rifle, taking the absolute brunt of that explosive acoustic sucker punch.
Exactly.
And V is right-handed. The 2.5-year timeline, the firearms training in the special duty team, the permanent nature of the damage, and the fact that it is concentrated in the right ear. It's a 1-to-1 clinical match.
It really is. And the study also documents that acoustic trauma of this nature goes far beyond pure volume loss.
Right.
The destruction of those hair cells causes a cascade of extra auditory symptoms. Out of the 40 soldiers, 25 experienced tinnitus, which is a constant phantom ringing in the ears caused by the brain desperately searching for signals from the dead hair cells.
That sounds like torture.
16 experienced dizziness because, the inner ear also controls balance.
Yeah, and 29 of them felt hyperacusis, or severe discomfort when exposed to loud sounds. But I think the most alarming statistic was that 30 out of the 40 soldiers reported problems with speech discrimination.
Right. Speech discrimination is the brain's ability to distinguish between similar-sounding syllables or to isolate a specific voice against background noise.
Like trying to hear a friend at a crowded party.
Exactly. When you lose specific frequencies of hair cells, human speech starts to sound like a muffled underwater garble.
Think about the implications of that for a K-pop idol on a massive global stadium tour.
It's devastating. A vocalist relies entirely on pitch recognition and audio feedback. When you are on stage, you wear in-ear monitors to hear your own voice, the backing track, and your fellow members.
Yeah.
If your right ear is only giving you 30% of that information and layering it with a constant dizzying ring of tinnitus, you lose your spatial awareness. You struggle to harmonize.
It is a direct threat to his core identity and his livelihood. Honestly, it's practically superhuman that he's been performing complex choreography and hitting vocal runs at that level with this injury.
Oh, absolutely superhuman.
Which honestly brings up the most frustrating question of this entire deep dive. If this injury is so debilitating, and if it started over 2 years ago in the military, why didn't he get help immediately?
Well, the medical delay is deeply intertwined with the sociocultural environment of the military. And unfortunately, how standard medical diagnostics often fail to validate a patient's early symptoms.
Right. The Korea Times article features a quote from V that is just heartbreaking.
It really is.
He said that his hearing got a little worse in the military, but because he was surrounded by people who exercised a lot and trained hard, everyone told him it's a matter of mental strength. He said, after that, I kind of convinced myself that it was a matter of mental strength. He bought into the culture of toxic resilience. You don't complain, you don't show weakness, you just push through the pain.
And that cultural pressure to tough it out is so pervasive. But the Trauma Monthly study actually provides a fascinating scientific explanation for how that tough it out mentality is accidentally supported by the medical establishment itself.
Wait, how does the medical establishment support toughing it out?
By relying on outdated testing methodologies that fail to capture early acoustic trauma.
Ah, okay.
The study compared 2 different types of hearing tests. The first is pure tone audiometry, or PTA. This is the standard occupational test. You sit in a soundproof booth, put on headphones, and raise your hand when you hear a beep.
Basically the classic school nurse test.
Yes. The researchers compared PTA against a much more advanced diagnostic tool called transiently evoked otoacoustic emission, or TEOAE.
Okay, to help the listener visualize this, let's think about echolocation. The standard PTA test is like standing outside a deep, dark cave and just asking the person inside, hey, can you hear me? If they shout back, you assume the cave is fine.
Right.
But the TEOAE test is like using high-tech sonar. You send a highly specific ping into the cave, and you listen for a very specific echo bouncing off the walls to map out any microscopic cracks or structural collapses.
And the biological reality of that sonar analogy is remarkable. TEOAE is an objective test that evaluates the structural integrity of the outer hair cells in the cochlea.
Okay.
When a healthy ear is stimulated by a clicking sound, those outer hair cells actually contract and expand. They act like tiny biological amplifiers. And that physical movement creates a faint acoustic energy, a sound wave that travels in reverse back out to the ear canal.
Wait, the ear actually makes a noise back?
It does.
Wild.
The TEOAE test inserts a tiny probe with a microphone into the ear canal to listen for that specific biological echo. If the hair cells have been damaged or destroyed by a gunshot, they cannot move. So the echo becomes weaker or disappears entirely.
So what happened when the researchers compared the classic beep test with this biological sonar?
They found that TEOAE is vastly more sensitive in detecting early acoustic trauma. Standard PTA audiograms usually only look for a loss of hearing at high frequencies, like 4,000 or 6,000 hertz, as the first sign of noise-induced damage.
Right.
But the TEOAE test revealed that the structural damage from impulse noise actually begins at the lower frequencies, between 500 and 2,000 hertz.
Oh, so the TEOAE was catching the damage immediately, 15 minutes after the shooting practice, while the standard test was missing the low-frequency structural damage entirely.
Exactly. By the time a standard PTA test shows definitive, undeniable hearing loss across the board, the hair cells are already dead. The damage is severe and permanent.
This connects all the dots of V's timeline. Just imagine a soldier or a global pop star serving his country, going to the military medic complaining of a ringing in his right ear after the shooting range. The medic puts him in a booth and gives him the standard PTA beep test. Because the damage is still in its early stages, the soldier can still hear the high-frequency beeps. The medic looks at the chart, clears him, and says, "Your test is fine. It's just in your head. Have some mental strength."
And the patient internalizes the idea that they are just being weak. They return to the firing range without ear protection. They continue to expose themselves to impulse noise, the weakened hair cells die off completely, and it cascades into a severe, permanent threshold shift.
Which is exactly where V is now. He told the fans on Weverse that he is now taking medication consistently and making regular hospital visits for treatment. He is trying to manage a permanent, irreversible injury that was likely masked for years by a combination of inadequate standard testing and a brutal culture of toxic resilience.
And the authors of the study explicitly warn that exposure lower than permissible OSHA levels can lead to acoustic trauma, and that highly sensitive testing like TEOAE must be implemented to monitor personnel effectively.
We started this deep dive with a casual live stream from a Baltimore hotel room, two bandmates chatting on a massive world tour. And that conversation ripped the lid off a very real, very permanent medical danger that affects millions.
It proves that human biology has its hard limits, and those limits do not care about your social status or your willpower.
Yeah, whether you are a 20-year-old soldier in training holding a Kalashnikov for the first time, or a K-pop visual on a stadium stage with the entire world watching, the tiny stereocilia in your inner ear don't care about your Billboard ranking.
They really don't.
They don't care about your mental strength. When they are hit with an acoustic shockwave, they break, and they do not grow back.
Which leaves us with a pretty heavy realization. If someone with the immense resources and premium medical access of a global pop idol can have a severe, permanent injury masked for years by basic testing and cultural pressure, what does that mean for the thousands of ordinary soldiers, construction workers, and heavy industry employees?
People who just assume the constant ringing in their ears is a temporary inconvenience they have to live with. How many people out there are losing their hearing right now because they think it's just a matter of mental strength? We hope this deep dive makes you think twice about protecting your ears, whether you're at a shooting range, a construction site, or yes, even in the front row of a K-pop stadium tour.
Absolutely.
Question that tough it out mentality in your own life. And remember, sometimes when the roaring crowd sounds like a whisper, it's not because you aren't listening hard enough. It's because the damage is already done. You've been listening to StarScope K-Report, where Eric and Minji bring you the stories shaping K-pop, K-dramas, and the global Hallyu wave. Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that keep the stars shining.